Hi, Mystery Recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a sci-fi thriller movie called Z for Zachariah. Spoilers ahead. Watch out and take care. The movie begins with scenes of a desolate city which has been completely destroyed by radiation. Almost the entire population has been wiped out, and the few remaining people are struggling to make ends meet. In the next scene, we are introduced to our protagonist, a young woman named Anne Burden. As part of her daily routine, she puts on a protective suit and ventures into the city for essential supplies. After gathering what she needs, she returns to her farmhouse, which is located in a green valley surrounded by mountains and forests. Turns out, this area is not affected by the radiation, so life is normal here. As soon as Anne arrives, she removes her suit and thoroughly bathes to wash away any residual radiation. She then prepares dinner from the scavenged supplies, eats them, and goes to sleep. The following day, Anne ventures out with her dog to check the traps she has set. Suddenly, the dog senses something and runs off, prompting her to follow it. They soon arrive near a strange-looking car where a man named John Loomis is wearing a protective suit. Curious, Anne hides in the distance and observes John as he checks for any potential danger. His tracing device shows no radiation in the area, so he happily removes the suit. He then takes a long, relieved breath and hops into a nearby waterfall. Seeing this, a panicked Anne rushes towards him and asks him to get out of the water. Her sudden arrival freaks John out and he points his gun towards her, but Anne makes it clear that she's not here to harm him. She explains that he shouldn't bathe in that water because it's contaminated with radiation from the city. John becomes scared upon hearing this, and he immediately gets out of the water. However, it's too late for him. The radiation has already gotten to him, and he begins to vomit. In his weakened state, John rushes to his car, retrieves an injection, and tries to administer it. He clearly struggles because of his shaky hands, so Anne helps him with it. John is now convinced that he won't survive the ordeal, so he pleads with her to burn his body. However, Anne refuses to give up on him so easily. She brings him to her backyard and thoroughly washes him to remove any remaining contaminants. She then brings him inside the house, but his health continues to decline. In the following days, Anne administers more medicine to John and remains dedicated to caring for him. One night, he suffers from high fever and whimpers in pain. She tries to cool him down with cold water, but his condition doesn't improve and he remains unconscious. With no options left, Anne resorts to praying for his quick recovery. This finally works, and John manages to regain his consciousness. One evening, as they sit outside on the porch, Anne shows him a photo album. She reveals about her brother who left to find supplies but never returned. He wasn't even looking for milk. She also talks about her father who died from radiation exposure. Now, the only one by her side is her pet dog. Moved by her story, John stares at her with affection. He then reveals he is a research engineer who worked for a government facility. He was actually on the design team that made the radiation-resistant suit he was wearing when they first met, which means that he should have damn well known not to bathe in that water. I don't get it. The next day, while Anne is farming, John approaches her and asks about the unused tractor. She reveals that it stopped working when they ran out of fuel. John talks about a nearby gas station and suggests going there. Initially, Anne hesitates, pointing out that there's no electricity to pump the fuel, but when the engineer John says that they can retrieve it manually, she gets ready for the mission. Anne then ventures off to the gas station and successfully refuels her tractor. She jumps in excitement and waves at John, who is looking at her through a rifle scope. Maybe John should get some binoculars for next time. After a while, Anne returns home and expresses her gratitude to him. She acknowledges that she hadn't considered manually pumping the fuel before. John understands and says that perhaps living in isolation has led her to overlook such possibilities.
Or maybe you're just stupid.
He then reflects on his own past and shares that living in the government bunker made him feel as though his life had come to a standstill. He mentions that he constructed his wagon-like car and suit to explore the world and regain a sense of freedom, even if it meant risking his life. As John regains his strength, he gradually gets used to Anne's simple, rustic life. One day, she takes him to a nearby pond, which is free from radiation. She catches a big fish and enjoys the meal with him. John feels blessed to have met her, because this place is exactly what he was looking for when he left his bunker. With winter approaching, Anne mentions that they need to stock up on food, as she nearly starved last year. She hopes to get the freezers working so they can catch and store fish from the pond. Anne mentions that she used to have a generator, but it's broken now. Upon hearing this, John once again tries to make use of his engineering degree. He heads to the generator room and tries his best to fix it, but to no avail. So he takes Anne to the waterfall and shares a new idea.
What if we have sex.
John suggests that they generate their own electricity from the waterfall. For this, they need to build a large wheel that will rotate upon contact with the water. Anne absolutely loves the idea, so they return home to plan further. John explains that they will need a large quantity of wood to manufacture the wheel. Since no trees are suitable for such wood, they will have to demolish the nearby church and use its planks. However, Anne vehemently refuses the idea. As a devout believer, she explains that when she was alone, the church provided her comfort and solace. It was actually built by her late father, who used to work as a priest there. Respectful of her feelings, John drops the idea, and they decide to focus on other ways to arrange the generator. One afternoon, while Anne is farming, John discovers a deserted supermarket where he starts drinking alcohol. When she finds him there, he becomes increasingly drunk and aggressive towards her. Anne somehow brings him home, but his rude behavior upsets her deeply. The following morning, John apologizes for his unexpected behavior last night. Anne is willing to save their relationship, so she forgives him quite easily, and even reassures him that she's not upset. To cheer up his mood, she prepares a lovely dinner for them that evening. She opens a bottle of wine and starts drinking from it. John is confused by her behavior, as he knows that she never drinks alcohol. Regardless, they enjoy the meal and dance away the night together. Later, Anne takes him to her room and begins undressing herself. They come close to starting a sexual relationship, but John suddenly holds back. He says that it would change things between them, and that he needs more time. It's the apocalypse, John. Lighten up. A few days later, as Anne is walking her dog through the hills, she encounters a man named Caleb. He appears to be severely dehydrated and malnourished. Despite the guy being a complete stranger, Anne feels bad for him and brings him over to her farmhouse. John is alarmed by Caleb's presence, so he quickly pulls out his rifle, but Anne calms him down, assuring him the guy is not a threat. Caleb then explains that he was living with others in a mine not far away, but the radiation soon reached their area. As a result, his friends went rogue and started killing each other. This caused him to flee for his life and coincidentally arrive here in this radiation-free valley. Later, Anne talks with John in private and insists they let Caleb stay indoors. John is reluctant, but he doesn't have a say in this. After all, it's Anne's place. And this movie clearly needs a love triangle. That evening, as they share a meal together, both men share harrowing stories of the post-apocalyptic world that they encountered before finding the valley. John recalls meeting a young boy who had been infected by the radiation while he was heading north. Unable to go through the painful side effects, he pleaded to be put out of his misery. John felt really bad for the boy, so he shot him and dumped his body on the side of the road. Jesus, John? Both of the others think that they can't be friends with John anymore after that story. After dinner, Anne shows Caleb to his room and asks him to rest comfortably. Seeing them so close, John advises her to be cautious, as they don't know much about the new guy. He is suspicious of Caleb's backstory, as he had claimed he survived by working in the mines. However, Anne responds defensively and questions why he didn't talk about the radioactive boy earlier. John admits he wanted to tell her, but struggled to find the courage. He then gathers his courage and shockingly reveals that the boy was none other than her brother. He was in such bad condition that John had no choice but to put him down. Upon hearing this, Anne bursts into tears, but she understands his situation and forgives him. The next day, the two men go hunting in the forest, but there's certainly some tension between them. Caleb mentions that he shares the same religious beliefs as Anne. He also praises her attitude and determination, which makes John really envious. But despite their differences, they successfully hunt a wild bird and bring it home. Later that evening, they discuss the water wheel project again. Caleb opposes using the church wood, citing its significance as a place of prayer. But surprisingly, Anne changes her mind and says they should go for it. She emphasizes that maybe God wants them to generate electricity, as it is their only hope of surviving the winter. Starting the next day, the trio gets to work on dismantling the church. Anne and Caleb grow closer during this time, making John increasingly uncomfortable. So, he calls Anne aside and expresses his feelings to her. He also says that he respects her choices, and that she has the right to live as she wishes, whether with him or someone else. Anne feels conflicted about his words, so she leaves the conversation without saying anything. The next day, they make significant progress on their water wheel project. To celebrate, they have a candlelight dinner near the pond. They also play a fun game where Caleb throws a bottle into the water, and the other two compete to find it. John appears to be a bad swimmer, so he immediately gives up. As for Anne, she finds the bottle, but it slips away from her grasp. Caleb is impressed by her skills, so he offers to assist her in retrieving the bottle. As the two dive into the water, John watches them with jealousy in his eyes. So, as soon as Anne resurfaces, he says that he's ready to marry her. The latter is completely taken aback by his words, but she seems to be overjoyed as well. They then head to their room to discuss further, but John is so drunk that he soon passes out. Anne, who is in desperate need of some affection, tries to wake him, but he rudely asks her to leave him alone. Feeling disappointed, she heads over to Caleb's room and stands in front of his doorstep. She remains conflicted with her feelings for both men, so she hesitates to knock. But at this moment, Caleb opens the door and pulls her inside. They then start making out and eventually spend the night together. The next morning, Anne sits at the breakfast table with Caleb, making John feel uneasy again. Afterward, the two men decide to continue their work on the water wheel. On their way, John thanks Caleb for unintentionally bringing him closer to Anne. It was because of him that John realized his love for her. Caleb feels uncomfortable by the vague implication, so he remains silent. Despite their differences, the two men complete the water wheel and position it at the top of the waterfall. Caleb, who is wearing a cumbersome radiation suit, slips during the climb up. John quickly grabs the rope to save him. However, as they lock eyes during this moment, John senses resentment from Caleb. He realizes that Caleb wouldn't save him if he were in the same position. The scene then suddenly fades to black. John returns home alone, where Anne confesses that she made a mistake the previous night because she was heavily drunk. John casually forgives her, saying he understands her desperation. He then mentions that Caleb suddenly left in search of other settlements. However, Anne becomes suspicious upon hearing this and steps outside to look around. When she finds no one, she believes John might have orchestrated something. She spends the next few days feeling sad and struggling with her doubts about John's actions. One evening, Anne discovers that John has connected the wiring to the generator, which is now powered by the water wheel. This brings back the electricity in the house, making her very happy. The next day, she visits the storage area where she notices a piano that once belonged in the church. John has recovered it after they decided to dismantle the place. Anne begins to play the piano and gets deeply engrossed in her music. After a while, John joins her and observes her with a guilt-ridden face. He realizes that she has figured out the truth, that he killed Caleb, and her trust in him has shattered. The movie comes to a close as Anne continues to play the piano and unleash her sorrow and disappointment. Meanwhile, John listens quietly and understands the weight of her emotions. Subscribe for more videos like this, turn on notifications, and leave a like to help the channel out. Thank you for watching.